From medieval dungeons to ancient courts, women have endured some of the most unimaginable punishments in history, cruelty beyond belief, all under the guise of justice. History is not merely a collection of battles and empires. It is also a chronicle of humanity's darkest impulses, particularly in the ways societies have sought to punish and control women. Across the centuries, justice systems have wielded brutal imagination to turn women's bodies into battlegrounds for enforcing societal norms and power structures. From being burned at the stake to suffering through torturous devices designed for pain and humiliation, these punishments were not just cruel acts, but deliberate attempts to silence and control. In this discussion, we will uncover some of the most horrifying punishments women endured throughout history. Stay with us as we explore these harrowing practices, each more disturbing than the last, and reveal the chilling lessons they offer about fear, power, and oppression. Burned at the stake. Burning at the stake remains one of history's most infamous and excruciating punishments. Predominantly used during the Middle Ages, this method targeted women accused of witchcraft, heresy, or moral failings. Far from being just an act of execution, it was a tool of terror meant to instill fear and reinforce societal authority. Women were disproportionately subjected to this fate, often scapegoated during crises such as plagues or famines, when fear and paranoia ran rampant. Victims were tied to wooden stakes, surrounded by flammable materials, and left to perish in unbearable flames while large, jeering crowds watched. One of the most well-known figures to suffer this gruesome fate was Joan of Arc, the French military leader accused of heresy and condemned in 1431. As the flames engulfed her, she reportedly cried, "Hold the cross high so I may see it through the flames." Authorities often justified burning at the stake as a means of purifying the soul or protecting society from supposed evils. However, in reality, it was a method of reinforcing power and eliminating those who threatened the established order. This punishment exemplifies the intersection of fear, control, and misogyny, leaving behind a legacy of suffering and injustice. Forced to wear scold's bridles. The scold's bridle, or brank, was a cruel device used in early modern England and Scotland to silence women deemed quarrelsome, gossipy, or defiant. This iron contraption encased the head, featuring a sharp metal plate that was inserted into the mouth to suppress speech, often causing pain and injury. Women subjected to this punishment were not only silenced but also publicly humiliated. Some bridles were adorned with devil horns or animal features to further degrade the wearer, making them objects of public mockery as they were paraded through towns. Historian William Harrison described the device in his description of England as a tool to correct unruly tongues, highlighting society's efforts to enforce female silence and submission. The bridle was designed to break both the spirit and the body, punishing women simply for using their voices. The ducking stool punishment. The ducking stool was a widely used punishment in medieval England and colonial America, specifically targeting women accused of being scolds, witches, or engaging in immoral behavior. This punishment involved strapping the woman into a wooden chair attached to a long beam, which was then used to repeatedly dunk her into a body of water. While it may seem like a mere correctional method, it was, in reality, a public spectacle designed to humiliate and control women. Victims were often plunged into cold, dirty water, risking hypothermia, injury, or even death. The punishment was deeply rooted in ancient trial-by-water rituals, where floating signified guilt and sinking indicated innocence, a paradoxical judgment that often led to fatal consequences. Crowds gathered to mock and jeer, reinforcing societal control through public shaming. More than just physical punishment, the ducking stool served as a psychological weapon designed to instill fear and obedience. By reducing women to objects of public ridicule, it reminded them of the severe consequences of defying patriarchal expectations. Breast ripper torture. The breast ripper, also known as the iron spider, was one of the most gruesome punishments inflicted on women during the medieval and early modern periods. Specifically designed to mutilate women accused of adultery, blasphemy, or witchcraft, This device consisted of sharp metal claws that were either heated or used cold to tear the victim's breasts. Beyond causing excruciating pain, the breast ripper served as a horrifying public spectacle, meant to shame women and deter others from defying societal norms. It was not merely a tool of physical torture, but also a psychological weapon designed to instill fear. Public executions using this device highlighted the brutal lengths patriarchal systems went to in order to maintain control. The scars left, both physical and emotional, serve as grim reminders of the systemic violence endured by women throughout history. Tortured on the Spanish donkey. The Spanish donkey, also known as the wooden horse, was a medieval torture device used to inflict unimaginable suffering on women accused of defying societal norms. The device featured a sharp triangular wooden beam upon which victims were forced to straddle. Heavy weights were attached to their ankles, increasing downward pressure and driving the sharp edge into their flesh. This torture method resulted in unbearable pain, deep injuries, and often permanent damage. It was commonly used during the Spanish Inquisition and other authoritarian regimes to punish women accused of witchcraft, adultery, or other offenses deemed threatening to societal order. The humiliation of the punishment was amplified by its public nature, ensuring that onlookers absorbed its deterrent message. The Spanish donkey was not merely a means of punishment, but a tool of control, designed to break the physical and psychological resilience of its victims. Horror of the Pair of Anguish. The Pair of Anguish, also known as paraspinia, was one of the most horrifying torture devices ever created. Shaped like a metal pear, it was designed to be inserted into the victim's body, with its placement varying depending on the accusation. In some cases, the device was inserted into the mouth, while in others, it was forced into more sensitive areas of the body. Once the device was in position, the torturer would turn a screw, causing the pear-shaped device to expand. As it opened, it would tear the surrounding tissues, inflicting excruciating pain and causing severe internal damage. The effects of the pair of anguish were often catastrophic. Many victims suffered lifelong injuries, while others succumbed to their wounds, sometimes dying from the internal trauma inflicted by the device. The device's cruel design was as much about humiliation as it was about punishment. It targeted the victim's physical and psychological well-being, particularly women, as it was often used to punish women accused of crimes such as witchcraft, adultery, or other offenses deemed immoral by societal standards. Although historical records on its widespread use are scarce, the device's very construction reflects the ingenuity of cruelty that was employed to control and silence women. The pair of anguish was a tool of oppression, used under the guise of justice to break the will of the accused. It represents one of the darkest periods in history, where torture and violence were wielded as instruments of power and fear. Tormented on the iron chair. The iron chair, also referred to as the chair of torture, was an excruciatingly painful device used during the medieval and early modern periods, primarily targeting women accused of witchcraft, adultery, or treason. This horrific chair was covered in sharp metal spikes on the seat, backrest, and armrests, designed to penetrate the victim's flesh. The individual would be strapped tightly into the chair, immobilized, and forced to sit against the spikes, causing immense pain. In some versions, the chair was heated, intensifying the suffering as the metal burned the skin. The iron chair was not only a form of punishment, but also a method to extract confessions. Victims were subjected to prolonged torment, with the intent to break their will and force a confession, regardless of the truth. Death was often delayed, prolonging the agony before execution. This cruel device represents a dark chapter in history, where human suffering was used as a tool for control, manipulation, and intimidation during periods of injustice and fear. Reflection and lessons. The punishments endured by women throughout history serve as haunting reminders of the consequences of fear, prejudice, and unchecked authority. These acts of cruelty were more than just punishments. They were deliberate tools of oppression meant to silence, control, and strip women of their dignity. As we reflect on these dark chapters, we are reminded of the resilience of the human spirit and the ongoing struggle for justice rooted in equality and humanity. What stood out to you the most about these punishments? How do they shape your view of justice today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this exploration meaningful, consider liking, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell. Let's uncover and learn from history together. Stay tuned.